India's infrastructure has grown over the past 5 years. Now, invest in the largest infrastructure fund and be a part of this growth story. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
This is Network 18 and you are watching CNN-IBN.
Good evening, you're with CNN-IBN. Up next, Karan Thapar plays devil's advocate with Arun Jaitley. But first, the headlines. The centre says it will not intervene in the Ayodhya verdict as the BJP renews its call for a temple to be built at the Ram Janmasthan. Mulayam Singh Yadav criticizes the court verdict for giving primacy to faith. 2 days to go for the Commonwealth Games. The Indian Army hands over the reconstructed foot-over bridge opposite the Nehru Stadium. But does anyone care for the labourers still battling for life in hospital? First day, first battle. Zaheer Khan and Ricky Ponting engage in a verbal duel on the field after the Australian skipper is run out in the first test in Mohali.
जब मैं पाकिस्तान की तरफ देखता हूं तो उधर मुझे कोई ऐसा सियासी अल्टरनेटिव नहीं नजर आता जो पाकिस्तान के अंधेरे में इस वक्त रोशनी दिखा सके.
Pakistan is heading for another coup. Former President Pervez Musharraf on a day he officially launches his political party.
Hello and welcome to a special Devil's Advocate. 24 hours after the Ayodhya judgment, what does the BJP make of it? That's the key issue I shall discuss today with the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, Arun Jaitley. Arun Jaitley, the RSS Sangsad Chalak has said that there are no winners and losers, but many people believe that in a preponderant sense, the Ayodhya judgment has come down on the side of the Hindu position. Will you accept that?
Well, I think to the extent that it opens up the avenue for now the construction of a Ram Mandir at Ayodhya, you can say this. But the manner in which the judges have framed the judgment and they've addressed the issues, and all three have a different approach in which they've done it, I think this whole restraint which is being exercised by various sections, don't look at winners or losers. It's an issue which requires to be resolved, and this judgment perhaps lays a possible framework for moving ahead. And that's why I see that it's not only the RSS chief, in the entire country, there's a reaction of huge maturity as far as this judgment is concerned, barring a few exceptions who may have their grievances.
I want very much to talk about the content of the judgment in a moment's time, but first, the RSS Sangsad Chalak has also said that this is not a cause for celebration. But when L.K. Advani says that the judgment has laid the way for a grand temple, he sounds to many people celebratory, even triumphal.
So that I must say, even the RSS chief said that don't go out of control and start celebrating. Well, this lays down the foundations as far as the temple process is concerned, and therefore there must be an effort to now make it a reality. In that sense, your language may be different, but the nuances of both are really the same.
But why does it have to be a grand temple? Doesn't that sound triumphal?
You see, I don't think I'll be fair if I did not say, and that's my party's belief, my own belief, that Ayodhya is a place of special significance to the Hindus, and if a temple at that place is being built, which has a cultural, a religious, historical significance, well, whichever way you say the temple is, it's always good to call it Grand Temple or Bhavya Mandir as the phrases go. And why should anybody object to the idea of a grand temple, particularly if the court judgment allows a temple to be built?
Except for the fact that to many ears the word grand seems to have a slight rubbing salt into the wound.
I think that's really playing with words. Because if you are having a temple at a place of historical importance, don't we speak about great places of worship, the churches, the gurdwaras, the mosques? When we refer to some of those great architectural structures, why must this be insipid if it is to be built?
Let's now come to the actual content of the judgment. First, the judges have concluded that this is a Ram Janmasthan on the basis that that is what Hindus believe in. But that's tantamount to converting belief into a fact. Is that legally tenable?
I think we have a debate going on since yesterday in the whole country. by people, including you and me, who've read the broad headlines or the brief points. None of us has read the judgment. And therefore, it's highly unfair to the judges or to the judgment to have detailed discussions without having gone through the logic as far as the judgment is concerned.
Except for the fact that two out of the three judges argue unbelief.
What I understand is that some of the issues in the judgment was, it was an issue in a civil suit. And civil suit is not a generalized thing. There are pleadings, there are issues which are raised, there are issues which are framed. And the issues were, is this place perceived to be a place of worship where Lord Ram was born, or was it the Janmasthan? Now this perception itself was the issue, and this having been framed as an issue, both parties have led evidence and addressed arguments. The judges are bound to answer it.
You're being slightly clever in your explanation, because they didn't simply say that this place is perceived as an issue. They went on to argue that the perception has actually converted into a fact.
I don't think either you or I have read even 500 pages of the judgment, forget the 8,000 words. And therefore, this is a discussion between two people who've just gone through the little summary. I would wait for my final comment, and I would advise you to wait for your question after the judgment has been read by people, including you and me, and then we start commenting on it. It's unfair for us to get into a discussion without having gone through the details.
All right, that's a fair point you make, but let me put it like this. You're a lawyer. Let me put it to you. If a community believes that Mr. A is born in place B, does that belief make it a fact?
Well, that makes it a fact of existence of a belief.
No more. No, this judgment goes further.
No. Therefore, you must read the judgment, because as I understand, the issue is really in relation to the belief. The belief itself is a distinct issue, and I'm sure the judges have tried to answer that issue.
Except you will accept, won't you, that there is a difference between the belief and the fact.
Well, I think let's read the judgment as to what it has said. Okay. Because I am given to understand, I have read the issues, and I have read specific issues relating to the belief. Parties have addressed each other, the court, on the existence of a belief, and therefore the judges have answered it. Let's not have a discussion which is devoid of the basic information. That's the text of the judgment.
A second part of the judgment is that the judges have concluded that the mosque was built upon a previous structure, which they say was a Hindu temple. But that means that they've accepted without questioning an ASI report which is highly disputed and considered by many top historians to be questionable.
Well, the views of those historians may be questionable. Ultimately, in a democratic society which is governed by constitutionalism, you can't have convenience as constitutionalism. You have a system where the court appoints the ASI as an agency. Some left of center historian is not the ASI. The ASI in turn hires the best international experts. What is the evidence that they have? They have plaques which was recovered immediately upon the demolition of the disputed structure by the ASI. They have pillars which have been recovered and material which has been recovered by the ASI. Then you had ASI hire an international, I'm told a Japanese agency, which did various other studies by digging into below the surface and finding out was there an existing structure below the surface.
They did laser studies.
Now they did laser studies. Now if all these studies, now I'll just place the evidence before you, because I've been seeing some adverse comments coming from vested interests, come to a conclusion and a conclusive report is given. It is disputed as long as the report doesn't come. Once there is cross-examination, now please allow me to complete, on that report, once you grill the ASI for days together and the judges give their opinion, it is no longer disputed, subject to the right of appeal, then that becomes a fact. And historian is entitled to criticize the judgment, but India will be governed by a judgment delivered by a court and not the opinion of some politically inclined historian.
That is very much a contested answer that you've given me. First of all, the ASI report needs to be interpreted. Different interpretations are as valid as each other. Secondly, someone has to then judge between the interpretation. That means,
unfortunately, we don't have a kangaroo system of... Unfortunately...
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Normally, you don't allow us to finish.
The problem is that when you need someone to judge between different interpretations, that person has to have the expertise to do so. Whatever else judges of the Allahabad High Court may be, they're not historians with that expertise.
Well, so unfortunately, Karan, we don't have a kangaroo system of justice where television studio and anchors become judges. We are governed by constitutionalism, where judges with the strength of, on the strength of expert witnesses, are the judges of even expert evidence. Judges are not expert handwriting witnesses. Judges are not expert archaeological witnesses. It is judges who, they can decide questions of science, depending on whatever is the medical evidence. In a medical negligence case, a judge is not a doctor, but the expert will come and give evidence and the judge will opine on that basis. That's the system we have.
I'll tell you what the problem is in this instance, that at least in two specific important areas, the judges have relied on something which is not indisputable. In the first instance, they relied on faith. In the second instance, they relied on a contested, disputed opinion. That's why people question
your
the
question
validity.
is based on a non-reading of the judgment, B, on an erroneous presumption, at least on the second fact. The first I have already answered. The judges, I assume, would have realized, because that was the evidence, an ASI report, international agencies which did a laser study, historical writings of a contemporary nature, that is 17th century and 16th century writings of travelers, historians of that particular moment, the official gazetteer of during the British rule in India. As against this, there was almost a negligible evidence. You found structures there with Hindu markings. Now, on the basis of all this, if judges come to an opinion, now what I seriously object to, that you can't have a constitutionalism of convenience in India. Pardon me for saying this. Till 4 o'clock yesterday, I saw so-called historians and lawyers sitting in television studios saying a judgment is coming, it must be accepted. At 4:15, when you saw the judgment swinging the other way, you immediately turned into a critique of the Allahabad High Court. Now, this was something which at least a civilized Indian society, you can criticize the judgment, but you can't change within 15 minutes the tenor of your entire argument.
Except now you're talking about a slightly different issue. You're talking about how commentators change their position, and your criticism of commentators is legitimate from your standpoint. I don't want to prolong the argument over the validity or invalidity of the basis on which the judges have come to conclusions, but let me just point one thing out, and then I'll move on. That the elements of fact that you point towards, such as plaques, such as pillars, such as Hindu markings, have other interpretations in the eyes of reputed historians like D.N. Jha, Irfan Habib, Jai Menon. That's why this is a contested finding. But leave that aside.
It's a contested fact between ideologically motivated historians of different varieties. The others may say something else. But in a democratic society governed by a rule of law, ultimately a disputed fact is to be decided, even if it's an expert fact, by a court of law.
That's true, except that the problem is that disputed facts still have contentious aspects, and people often remember that. Mr. Jaitley, let's take a break at that point, but this is by no means the end of the interview. There's a lot more to come. Stick with us.
Ayodhya verdict is finally out. There are no winners and losers. India is moving on.
The younger generation has totally moved on from the Ayodhya issue.
High time we move away from Hindus and Muslims and Christians.
Splitting into 3 parts, that's good enough.
Both Muslims and Hindus can pray in the same place.
CNN-IBN brings you voices of the post-Ayodhya generation. India beyond Ayodhya.
India's infrastructure has grown over the past 5 years. Now, invest in the largest infrastructure fund and be a part of this growth story. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
My Tag Heuer watch. Let me tell you a fascinating story. 150 years ago in a workshop in Switzerland, a perfect watch was found. Time passed, tools changed. Year after year, Tag Heuer watchmakers have pioneered precision. Tag Heuer watches became a legend, wanted by movie stars and kings. I'm Shah Rukh Khan, and I'm proud to be part of Tag Heuer's legend. History begins every morning.
Frequent flights. Smooth roads. Scintillating train journeys. Comfortable hotels. Come, explore the Northeast.
India's infrastructure has grown over the past 5 years. Now, invest in the largest infrastructure fund and be a part of this growth story. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Breakfast. My bus. Oh, फिर से. ये खाओ.
2 ग्लास दूध के कैल्शियम के साथ रियल कॉर्नफ्लेक्स क्रंचीज, हॉलिक्स कॉर्नफ्लेक्स क्रंची बिस्किट्स.
Introducing the new air conditioner from Panasonic with e-ion purifying system, eco-petrol sensor, and inverter technology saving you up to 60% power. Panasonic inverter AC with eco-petrol.
That's what I call a real star.
Panasonic, ideas for life.
India's infrastructure has grown over the past 5 years. Now, invest in the largest infrastructure fund and be a part of this growth story. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
This is Network 18 and you are watching CNN-IBN.
Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an exclusive interview with the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, Arun Jaitley. Let's change tack and come to a different aspect of this judgment. The judges have dismissed the Sunni Waqf Board petition on the grounds that it was time-barred. They've recognized the site as the Ram Janmasthan. They've also said that in fact the mosque was built upon a Hindu temple, and yet instead of handing the site entirely to the Hindus, they've chosen to split it into 3 equal parts. I put it to you that their findings mismatch with their conclusion.
Well, let me tell you, I have not read the basic logic they have arrived at. Maybe even I, from a different point of view, may like to contest that logic. But it is quite possible for a judge, having dismissed that suit, come to an alternative finding, and I'll tell you how. The judge dismisses the Sunni Waqf Board suit on the grounds of limitation. The suit is not maintainable. Then it goes to the suit filed by the deity and says, there are no original title documents produced by any one of you three.
And they can't be.
No, they can't be. But possession for centuries is with all three. Somebody has been worshipping in different parts of the structure. I therefore hold this possession to be joint. On that basis, I declare you a joint owner, but I don't want disputes any further. I pass a final decree of joint ownership of 1/3 each, but it's a preliminary decree how this 1/3 is to be partitioned. So in the deity's suit, having dismissed the Sunni Waqf Board suit on limitation, the court was perfectly entitled to come to this view. Maybe those appearing for the deity would still be entitled to say, having come to that conclusion, it should have given it to us entirely. But if the court came to an alternative view, it is not that as though it is some fanciful view, it is a plausible view, which on given facts may be possible. Somebody is entitled to come to an opinion that this should not have been done. This ground will be gone into
I'll
the
tell
appeal.
you why I raised this issue. Many people have come to the personal conclusion that there is a strong element in the solution proposed by the judges of reconciliation, of compensation, of compromise. Are you, Arun Jaitley, and the BJP in agreement with that sentiment?
Well, I don't think I will give a final opinion without having read the judgment. We have only made a limited comment that this judgment is a step forward in the construction of the temple. This judgment also lays down the foundations which, if it takes us on that track, will improve inter-community relations in India. It will also add to India's integration as a nation. That's a sufficient hint enough which we have given. But I must say that I found reaction of a large number of friends belonging to the minority community on television, which were also positive. I've spoken to a number of them. But however, there are some, both in the civil society as also in the political domain, who want to continue an Indian minority living in fear. They seem to be more disturbed than the minorities themselves.
Okay, that again is your personal opinion, but let me tell you one of the problems with the three-way split in the land. How can you build a grand temple on 1/3 of the land?
Well, I am not a great votary of giving it three ways. But assuming the court at some stage says, and that's the end of the dispute, you must leave it to the wisdom of people to work out solutions. There is a Supreme Court still which is awaited. There are parties which will be open to negotiations. And I think the resilience of Indian society is how to do it, the society will work it out. Without reading the judgment, in a 10-minute interview, you and I can't decide how it will be done. But there are cases in the world where it has been done. It's not impossible. It will be, or the court leaves an opportunity. If it can't be done here, for the mosque, give a land elsewhere from amongst the acquired land of the government. Therefore, court has various pragmatic options. But the court, therefore, has phrased it in a manner, it doesn't add to tensions, it dilutes tensions in India.
Except for the fact that there is a second level of problem. After all, on the 1/3 given to the Sunni Waqf board, they are free to do what they want. Would you be happy if they choose to build a mosque adjacent to the Ram Janmastan and adjacent to your grand temple?
Who has thought in details of all this so as to comment? And one is not going to give some quickie reactions to bizarre or absurd or hypothetical situations.
But this is not bizarre, it's not even hypothetical, it could actually happen.
Well, when it happens, we'll react to it. But today we are at an interim stage where the High Court has decided and given a particular roadmap. Parties are likely to move to the Supreme Court. Parties are also likely to sit for negotiations. And don't forget, in the course of all this, what is the future course? Let's trust the maturity of the parties and of the Indian society.
Now, the Allahabad High Court has itself said that the status quo will be maintained for 3 months because they want to give the three parties time to work out amongst themselves how the 1/3 division of the land will happen. Do you think that's actually likely, or is it a tall order?
Well, I think all options will be explored by parties. If parties sit together and the government facilitates that, I think it will be a good situation.
Should the government facilitate it?
Well, I think there is a role of the state in resolving issues also. The court itself, the appeal court itself can do it. After all, the Supreme Court is going to be the appeal court as far as this is concerned. Courts also try and bring about full and final justice between the parties, and therefore there are various opportunities. I can't foresee all that will happen over the course of the next 3 to 6 months.
As leader of the opposition today, would you advise the government to take the initiative and bring the parties together so that they can work out this division three ways?
Let us first await for some more time what is the attitude of the various contesting parties, and therefore I would suggest, and this is the comment we've made, this is a positive development, the judgment in this suit. It takes us in the direction of a temple. It takes us in the direction of a better national integration and better inter-community relations. Let's move on that roadmap rather than become confrontationists on this issue.
Let's come to the influence that this judgment is going to have on political parties and political sentiment in India. Is there going to be a wind in the BJP sails hereafter?
Well, I am nobody to praise my own party because I ordinarily do that. But if you see the reaction of the BJP and the RSS, and this comes from two of our senior most people, Bhagwatji has said so, Advaniji has said so, our reactions have been most modest.
No, your reactions may be modest, but are you anticipating that there's going to be a wind of support for you and that this is going to help you in the elections, not just in Bihar, but perhaps all the way to 2014?
Even though we've consistently been told that you are using it for political purposes, we've always said that we don't want to politicize it for the purposes of elections. Today we are in opposition. Today we are in opposition.
Can you resist doing so?
Well, you see, there is a dynamics of politics. Today we are in opposition. And even then, if we succeed in having the temple built, it's certainly a great pleasure, but we'd not like to link it to any particular election.
So even if your rhetoric may not be celebratory and triumphant, you do sense in your heart that there is a wind of support behind you.
I think there are a very large number of people who are relieved, who are happy, if not rejoicing. Some people may want more on either sides. But at the same time, as I said, we've reacted with a great sense of maturity. India has probably reacted with a very great sense of maturity.
Will the BJP now, in a more formal, upfront way, revive the Ayodhya and Ram Mandir issue? You've downplayed it for many years. Will it now come to the forefront?
Well, there are some issues which remain relevant. This issue is relevant because the court has announced a judgment.
Has it?
This issue will be relevant because the matter will go up an appeal and will possibly go for different kinds of procedures as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. And therefore, political parties don't censor themselves on those issues. Every party, I'm sure, will comment on it. But I can assure you, with this positive step, We are going to have a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, how to deal with it, and we want a great solution to this being worked out. We are not the principal party which is responsible for this. We are neither in government, we are neither the Vishwa Hindu Parishad nor the Sunni Waqf Board. They are the principal parties, but certainly in the direction of a temple, to the satisfaction of all, if a solution comes, the BJP will certainly act in a very responsible manner.
In other words, you'll take advantage of it, but you won't exploit it.
I haven't said so. I haven't said so, and I don't intend saying so.
Arun Jaitley, with that smile on your face, a pleasure talking to you.